There you go. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Tessa, and this is my partner,
Miriam.
And today we are going to be doing our grammar analysis project on a student named Alicia. So let me just get our slides up. And so, yeah, our student's name is Alicia. And
all right, so this is kind of like our agenda for today. So we're gonna go ahead. Tess is gonna start with the meaning, which is like the meaning of the writing sample as well as the strengths. And she's gonna be following up with the analysis, which is gonna be specified with consistent errors made in the writing sample. And she's also gonna go with the rules. So she's gonna explain the rules, which the correct usage of simple past and the present perfect. Following up with that, I am going to start talking about the mini lesson and explaining how it will go. And I'll also introduce a follow-up, which is like an additional assignment to do.
Yeah. Also, I just noticed that is a typo. We're not going to be talking about present perfect, just simple past for today. So let's get into our writing sample that we have. So I'm just going to quickly read this, and then we're going to go over what the meaning of this sample was and what Alicia really did super well. So the question that she was given says, now write a paragraph of at least 6 sentences describing how Martha solved her problem. So notice how it says solved in the question, which is simple past. So Alicia says, she solved her problem by measuring the tanks. What she did first is that she gave a number to the tanks and then write it on a piece of paper. Next, she measured the length of the tank, how long it is, then she measured the width. After that, she measured the height. Finally, she multiplied the length, width, and height. For tank 1, it was 12 cubic feet, I think that is. For tank 2, it was 9. For tank 3, it was 10. So 1 is the largest of tanks 2 and 3. All right. Sorry, our slides are being slow right now. So Alicia's writing sample comes from her math class, and she was tasked with writing an explanation of a math problem that she had previously completed relating to measuring fish tanks. And so in her sample, the meaning of her writing is that she is explaining of the steps that the person from the math problem took in order to answer the question regarding what size fish tank would fit in her space. So overall, Alicia's writing is very strong. She has perfect structure in her paragraph. It starts with a sentence that clearly states exactly how Martha decided to solve the problem. So she has a really good topic sentence. She solved her problem by measuring the tanks. Then she goes on to add details to further substantiate this claim by listing all of the steps that Martha went through to measure these tanks. And in doing this, Alicia goes another step further by using sequencing words like first, next, after, and finally. And then finally, at the end of the paragraph, Alicia writes the exact measurements that Martha calculated from the steps she took prior. So all in all, this is really a perfect paragraph and what we would want our students to be writing with the topic sentence that states exactly what they're going to be talking about, as well as concrete details and sequencing words, and then at the end, a great conclusion. So all in all, Alicia wrote a well-constructed paragraph that perfectly followed the prompt and included all of those details that I just talked about. So now we are going to go into what Alicia could have, or what her consistent error was. Here we go. Nope. So despite all of those super strong aspects of Alicia's writing sample, the one underlying grammatical error that she consistently makes throughout her writing is with the simple past tense. So if you remember when I was reading it, a lot of the verbs that she used in her paragraph were just simple present. They were not conjugated. So since the writing prompt says write a paragraph of at least 6 sentences describing how Martha solved her problem, it's talking about a situation that happened at one specific time in the past. And for that reason, Alicia needed to describe these steps using the simple past rather than the simple present. So here I have all of the words that she wrote using simple present. She wrote solve, give, write, measure, and multiply. And she should have used solved, gave, wrote, measured, and multiplied, as those would all be in the simple past. So to just quickly go over the rules for using simple past, as I said before, simple past is used to describe an event that happened at one particular time in the past, and it began and ended in the past. So in order to form simple past, it's pretty easy to do. You really just add ed to the base form of most verbs with a few exceptions. For example, if the base form ends in e, you just need to add a d instead of an ed. So from her writing sample, an example of this would be solve, which ends in an e, so you only need to add a d. That's the same goes for measure. You only need to add a d at the end. Then if the base form ends in a consonant plus y, as in multiply, you change the y to an I and add ed. So you would take off the y and add ied for multiplied. And then sadly, even though forming simple past is super easy with adding ed to the end, there are a ton of irregulars that really don't follow any specific rules, and they just need to be memorized. So some examples of this from Alicia's sample are give and write, and the simple past forms of those are gave and wrote, which, as you can see, do not add ed to the end. They really just have their own little irregularities to them. So now I'm going to hand it over to Miriam to talk about what we would do with Alicia.
Okay, so based on what Tessa just talked about, so a mini lesson that we could create for Alicia, it's just have her create a dear diary to practice the written form of the simple past. The student will write about her day in a diary. Alicia will write about what she did, will be the yesterday, because we're trying to her to use simple past verbs. And this is the website where I got the idea from.
All right, so before we get into the diary portion of it, we would do an opening exercise, which is in the form of a game. So you want me to talk about this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing that we would go over is the formation of regular past tense verbs, which is like how I was explaining before, you just add ed or some variation of that, but mostly it's just adding ed. So we would go over this with the students saying, you know, if I brushed my hair, what would I have done yesterday? I would have brushed it. You just add ed to the end of brush. Same with cook, which would turn into cooked. Walk would turn into walked. And so we found a really great website that has a memory game. So it's kind of like a game that you typically play with cards, but this one is online. So that's really great. If we were doing this a lot, we might actually make our own cards for it. But as you can see, so we have make, which if I was playing this with Alicia, I would say make, is that simple, or is that present simple or simple past? And then we would say, oh, it's present. And then we would say, I wonder, wait, this is the irregular one. Sorry. Okay, I messed up the links. I was like, made is irregular. Okay, so there's two different games. One has all irregular cards and then one has regular. So this one is regular. This one is definitely going to be easier to do. So we would flip one over. Cleaned, that must be simple past since it has ed at the end. And then we'd say, what is that? So what would the other version of it be? What would the simple present be? It would be clean. And then we would try and find clean and kind of just go through them like this, just thinking about how you just add ed or d to the end of the words. So after we really kind of got just the regular past tense, simple past verbs really down pat with Alicia, then we would move on to irregular, since that is going to be a little bit more difficult since there's so much to memorize.
Right. So as Tessa just explained, yes, we figured that this is a good opening exercise for the student just to get Alicia ready to write about irregular verbs and regular past tense verbs. And we thought that the game itself was fun to do, so the student can actually be engaged. So as Tessa just mentioned, there are a lot of irregular verbs, so this is a great game for her to like start practicing and just get into the habit of using the verbs, because she's gonna eventually have to do it in writing. So yes, so Tessa just did a match.
Yeah,
right
so, and even while we're doing this, like we might write the pairs on the board or something. You could really take it a bunch of different ways depending on how quickly Alicia starts to grasp the concept of simple past.
Yeah, and like plus, like for some reason, if like it depends on the students, some students do not like to use technology. So if that case it happens, we would do flashcards with them and just like kind of like flip them and have them flip it, which is like more hands-on activities. So it could go either way.
Yeah.
So following up with that, so we are going now to a yeah, file. There you go. All right, that's okay. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the activity that I have. So first, I like to start each activity that I want my students to do with a model. So that an explicit instruction, which is the I do. So like the teacher always does the I do. So as you can see, I have the teacher's model here, and I will start just basically scaffolding ideas. So in my presentation with her, I will be like, okay, so what did I do yesterday? So I'll go, okay, so I had a morning routine, I had a during school routine, and I had after school routine. So I break it down just for her to make it easier. So I will write on the board or on paper, okay, so in the morning I wake up, I brush my teeth, and I make my bed. During the school, I attend the courses, I talk with my friends, and then after school, I play sports and I have fun with friends. So as you can see, the next step after I scaffold all my ideas, I will underline the verbs that I need to conjugate into past tense verbs. So as you can see, I underlined it: wake, brush, make, attend, talk, play, and have. Now I have a mixture here just because we already played the game, so she should be already able to help me, just kind of be like my assistant here. So I will the first one I'll do it. So I was like, okay, so wake. So I know that wake, the first question that I'll ask myself is like, okay, so is that a regular verb or is it like irregular verb? So of course it's irregular, so I'll write woke. So since the second one is an ed verb, I'll let her help me. So I was like, okay, so it's brush. So what do you think? So Tessa mentioned it, brush as an example. So brush, do we add an ed at the end, or is there an irregular verb? So she will be like, okay, I had an ed verb. And I will follow up with made, attended, talked, played, and then had as a list. During that modeling, I will also reinforce the transitions, because I know that she has done very well in her sample, in her work. However, like if she is focused more in the verbs, she's gonna forget the transition. So I want to reinforce her, like to be like, okay, so in the morning I woke up, and then I brushed my teeth. After that, I made my bed, kind of thing. So I will literally highlight those transitions with her. After I finish with my modeling, and that helps a lot, because that is basically showing what I am expecting from Alicia. So I will tell Alicia, so literally everything that I just did right now, I need you to do the same thing. So it's gonna help her. So Alicia's turn, as you can see, I scaffolded for her a little more. So just like morning routine, school routine, and after school routine, just because I don't want her to lose the transitions as well. So I want her to write more. So what did she do during the morning? What did she do during school routine and after school routine? All right, and then, so after like she scaffolded all her ideas, Jesus, wait 1 second.
Why? Oh,
Oh, there
we
you
are.
go. Okay. So then the follow-up activity will be a writing activity, right? So now she's going to write at least 6 sentences in her daily routine. And of course, I'm going to have my sample just because for students, since I'm ENL student myself, I was an ESL myself, so I like to see what I'm expected to do. So like if the teacher can give me like what is the final work supposed to look like, well, kind of like a sample, doesn't have to look exactly the same. So it's even better because then the ENL student doesn't know what is the teacher expecting? Like, what does she want me to do? So as you can see, I did my paragraph yesterday. I woke up and brushed my teeth, then I made my bed. After that, I went to school and attended classes and talked to my friends. Finally, after school, I played soccer and had fun with my friends. And as you can see, I bolded the words because I want her to do the same thing. And if she's doing it in paper, she will color the verbs that she conjugated into simple past. And then I will ask her to either underline it or either circle the irregular verbs, just because the regular verbs are a little harder. So as you can see, I underlined mine. So that will be great for her to do as well.
I don't know why this is so hard. Okay, so yeah, that's the end of our activity for Alicia. Should we stop screen sharing?
Yes.
Yeah, so that all has to do with simple past. And as you can see, I feel like Miriam's activity that she came up with really ties it back to her sample writing thing, how she was just listing out things that happened in the past, and the diary activity would really help her just create sentences and talk about past experiences using the simple past.
I agree. And it cannot, I mean, it can be about anything really. I just picked school just because like it's a routine like that, like we do every single day, but it can also be like, okay, what did she do at home? Like, what did she do yesterday? Or sometimes like we do in school, what did you do in the weekend? So that could also work. That's another prompt that we can definitely use, and the students will benefit tremendously.
Yeah. All right, I think we're
All
good, right?
We're good.
Thank you for watching.